morning, fourth graders. How's everyone doing? Thumbs up, thumbs middle, thumbs down, thumbs up? That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. So today, to kick off our morning, we're going to start out with a short music lesson. And last week, we talked about the classical music era, and now we're going to move on to the next one, which is the Romantic music era, as you can see up here. And I just want you all to know, this Romantic era is not the same as our romantic songs we hear today. So it's not all about love and hugs and how much you care about one another. It's a whole time period just titled Romantic. Okay? So this is happening in the early 1800s, about 1830 to 1900. And to really put into character, take a good look at, if you're a girl, these girls here, and if you're a boy, these boys here. Imagine you're wearing these clothes and that you are working in a factory or with big new machines like this, because the time period is the Industrial Revolution. And while you will learn more about that in your history classes in the years to come, all you need to know today is that there's lots of new machines and people working faster, which means there's new inventions. New inventions means new instruments and better improved instruments. Okay, so to transition exactly from our classical era to Romantic era, we're going to listen to a song from one of Beethoven's symphonies. But didn't we learn about Beethoven in the classical music era? Yeah, well, even though he did not live in the Romantic era, his later symphonies, specifically Symphony 8 and 9, showed many characteristics that led up to the Romantic era. So that's why we're going to listen to this and transition. Okay, so kind of started out really loud and fast and then drastically stopped to go slower, right? And softer. So, before we talk about the composers who were alive during this period and different characteristics, let's go into a little bit about the instruments. So, they used the clarinet, the bassoon, and they started making different bassoons at this time, like the bigger clarinet, and also the flutes, which were starting to be made out of wood and metal and that type of thing. And many of these instruments were already created, but now people were taking better care of them. And also with the strings, there was violins, violas, cellos, bass, new guitars, those types of things that people didn't know how to better care for, and they were finding ways to make it that they last longer and make fuller sound. And they also used different percussion instruments, the drums, like the timpanis, like we talked about in classical music, some chimes. They used many bass instruments, French horn, tuba, trumpet, all those as well. Again, many inventions. The orchestra expanded even more. And one of the key components and characteristics about songs from this time period are that the harmonies and chords are very elaborate. Do you guys know what elaborate means? Yeah, they're jam-packed. So we're going to look at one of Frédéric Chopin's sonata that he wrote. Frédéric Chopin is a famous composer from this time period, and he's very well known for his chords and harmonies. And does anyone know what chords and harmonies are? So, if you take a look at the screen, you see all of these notes written here, and they're all stacked up together. That makes a chord. The notes and the different levels of sound, highness and lowness, are stacked on top of each other, so we hear high sounds, middle sounds, and low sounds all at once. And that's like when you sing harmony. You sing either above or below, a couple notes together. So if you listen and you can kind of watch a little bit, you see. So did you guys hear the distinct notes? Yeah. Another key characteristic is that these songs started to be longer, the melodies carried on, whereas in classical everything was kind of short and choppy, so to speak. This was almost never ending at times. And that's because during the Romantic era, these composers started playing on the streets. They started playing at festivals. People of any class, lower, middle, upper, were able to attend these concerts for enjoyment, not just intellectual stimulation or upper class or people with money. Everyone was enjoying music. So we're gonna listen to one of Giuseppe Verdi's songs called the Requiem Mass, because Verdi is another famous composer. So we're just gonna listen. This is an hour and a half long. So we are not listening to the whole thing, but just to give you a little sense of how long these actually were. Okay. And with that, I don't know if you guys heard, I hope you did. We'll go back and listen to it again, the large dynamic range, because with those long melodies, in order to keep it interesting, there needs to be fast-paced, slow-paced, but also loud and soft. So do you guys remember what our loud technical musical term is? Forte. And our soft one? Piano. Very good. So we'll listen to another song that really demonstrates that as well. And finally, one of the cultural reasons that people were listening to music, and since everyone in culture was listening to it, the composers would write songs about their country. This has a cool history term called nationalism, and many of their songs would be programs. That's what they were called, because they told a story. So the last famous composer we're talking about is Tchaikovsky. He has a really funny name. So Tchaikovsky. Can we all say his full name together? Tchaikovsky. 1, 2, 3. Tchaikovsky. Yeah. So he wrote a song about Romeo and Juliet. We'll just listen to a little bit of it. Everything is nice. Everything's nice, and flowers and rainbows and puppies at the beginning, and then it gets a little bit darker, minor chords, eerie sounding, loud for the climax. Yeah. Okay, so that's a program, and while that was a love song, they did have many programs regarding the love for their country. And now we're gonna do a quick little quaver explore. And notice up here, this is from the Baroque period, the size of the orchestra. And what's missing right here? Who's not there? The conductor's not there. And then we move to the classical period. We have the conductor, the orchestra has expanded quite a bit. And then in the Romantic period, whoa, there's all of these people here, all these percussion instruments, the drums, the chimes, the gong, the timpanis, French horn, tuba, trombone, clarinet, harp in the string section, the piano, all that good stuff. So we'll just listen to a little bit. This, again, is Tchaikovsky, that funny name. And listen for those different instruments, for the louds, the softs, the chords. All right. So do you guys hear that? You can talk about it with your neighbor, what you heard, and then talk about with their neighbor for about a minute. Okay. Now, we're going to try it on our own and listen to one last song, and It's called the 1812 Overture. You might have heard it before, and it uses fun percussion instruments in it. So I really want you guys to hear these fun percussion instruments. So it's really quiet. Now it's getting louder all of a sudden. Faster. Here it comes. So, did you guys hear that strange banging towards the end there? So, that was actually a cannon. A real cannon was used in this 1812 overture because lots of wars were going on. The War of 1812 was happening, so that had to do with this. So, I would have them write down what you guys heard and turn it in to see if you guys were hearing what we talked about. And then the homework for today is to go home and research one of the composers like Tchaikovsky and hear more of their songs and show it to your family. But before we do that, so that I know that you guys remember a little bit, what was the time period or the name of the time period that we were studying? It's not love songs, but romantic. Very good. And what was one composer that we talked about? Tchaikovsky. And what was one characteristic that we discussed from romantic music? Dynamics, the big range of dynamics. All right, awesome. Now you guys can go out to recess and we'll come back later. Thank you. Comments?
So I found it really cool how you like have a lot of visuals for your kids. I think it's a great way to keep them engaged, like spot on strategy.
Thank you.
What grade level is this?
4th.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I like how you talked about at the very beginning how it's, even though it's romantic, it's not the romantic we know. Because I think I had no idea that it was like that.
Yeah.